Welcome to Michelle's Making. Hope you're ready for coffee, crafts, cookies, and cocktails. Let's get going.
Welcome and welcome back to those of you who are returning. I really do appreciate it. Thank you to all my subscribers out there, and also thank you for those of you who have been sharing with your family and friends. That really does help the channel grow, and I appreciate it. Well, today is National Just Because Day. Well, just because, I guess. It's also National Pot de Crème, or Custard Day. So maybe custard is in order for our dessert today. I don't know. We'll see how the day goes. In the meanwhile, we're going to enjoy some pumpkin spice creamer. It's that time of year now. I am so glad to see that out in the stores again. It is one of my seasonal favorites for sure. But we'll enjoy that in our coffee. We're going to make it a great one, and let's get going.
Rather than baking cookies today, we're going to make some oven-baked ribs. Don't those look yummy? I used a seasoned salt, garlic powder, and a dry mesquite rub seasoning for the ribs. You'll sprinkle each side generously, and you really do need to rub it in well. Both sides. Once that's done, you wrap it up in aluminum foil. Make sure it's sealed well all the way around, and place it in a pan just in case some of the juices drip out. You don't want that falling in the bottom of your oven, but you'll bake it in an oven that's preheated to 325 degrees for 2 hours. Remove it from the oven and open the foil carefully. Watch out for that steam, don't burn yourself. And then put it under the broiler for about 10 minutes, just to crisp up that top a little bit. This is such an easy recipe and is so delicious. Let it set before cutting for about 15 or 20 minutes. But there you have it, delicious oven-baked ribs. Our first craft is a twine-wrapped pumpkin. I had picked up these pumpkin forms at Hobby Lobby. They were 40% off for $5.99 a piece, 2 of them. It was about $7. They do fit together to form a nicely shaped pumpkin, and I tied that with the zip ties to keep the form together as I was wrapping it with the twine. When I got to the zip ties around the sides, I did snip them off before wrapping the twine. I used some jute cord that I had picked up. I believe I got this at Walmart. I think it was $3.99. I cut off some fairly long pieces to wrap through because the roll itself wouldn't fit through the wire frame. But the great thing about this project too was that the hot glue and the twine kind of meshed together. So even when I glued the pieces together along the way, it didn't show or look any different whatsoever. I did glue to the inside, but it didn't make any difference as I was putting dabs of glue, and then I'd wrap some without glue and then some dabs of glue around a couple throughout the entire project, and it really didn't look like it had been glued at all. It was great. It was a little cumbersome getting it started, but once I had it going, it was pretty easy. It was time consuming though, I will say that. I really just sat down and watched a movie while I was doing it because it did take a while. But I got going. I initially was going to use the nautical rope from Dollar Tree to do every other of the spines that come out, but I got messed up and I forgot that I was going to do that. I ended up doing the entire thing with just the thin jute rope. But in the end, you know, those happy mistakes, things sometimes that lead us the direction we really are supposed to go. I did the entire thing with the thin twine, and then I did take the thicker nautical rope and went down and did 4 of the spines with that. And doing it that way, I was able to do a loose wrap around with the nautical rope, and it really gave it some great depth and dimension that ended up looking great. I really love this project. What do you all think of it? Leave me a comment and let me know what you think of this. So here you can see I'm taking the nautical rope and I am wrapping it kind of widespread down the spine. And when it came to gluing this at the top and the bottom, I did glue it to the inside of the frame. And to embellish the top of the pumpkin, I had picked up these, they're buffalo checked maple leaves at Dollar Tree. They are so cute. Dollar Tree also has this wired jute rope, which works great for making these little curly cues. Now it is a Dollar Tree product and the jute does want to separate from the wire a little bit, but you can see here I solved that problem by putting a little drop of hot glue and then twisting it around to seal it. Now make sure you use finger protectors for this because that hot glue will burn you bad. I glued 2 of the little curly cues on each side of the stem and a maple leaf on each side. And I just can't tell you how much I love this, and it matches my decor perfectly. For a final touch, I just took some strands of raffia and tied just a simple knot, just so it would have some shoots of raffia coming out from the stem. And there you have it, our twine wrapped pumpkin. Our next craft is a pumpkin truck tabletop sign. For this, I used a couple of things I had in my craft stash. This is an old truck from last Christmas that I had left over, and I needed to cut off the Christmas trees, so I just did that using my skill saw. It was real easy, just cut the piece off as you see here. And also a pumpkin sign from Dollar Tree. Now this pumpkin sign was from last year. It also had a metal maple leaf on the top I'd used for another project, and I started by sanding off some of the glitter, but I didn't have to worry about it being a little bit elevated because I was going to cover it with this craft paper. I used some spray adhesive and sprayed the pumpkin down good. This adhesive I've shown before in my other crafts, and I think I picked it up at Michael's or Joann's. I really can't remember. It is the best. It works so well. And using the spray adhesive is better than Mod Podge or glue because then it wrinkles your paper. But I used it for this with trimming around the edge with my razor knife, as you saw there. Painted the truck orange. I did stop and use a round candle to mark my wheels, so I could just kind of tell when I painted the wheels after this that where the line was. It didn't have to be exact with the orange because I was going to paint the wheels black. But I did paint it orange, or pumpkin actually. It's the Waverly pumpkin chalk paint. And then used my antique wax to give a dry brushing, to give it a little bit of a dirty, rusty look to the truck. And then use some black and antique wax mixed together to do my wheels. And of course, I used my handy dandy heat gun to speed up the drying process. For the hubcaps, I used 2 upholstery tacks that I snipped off the sharp, pointed part of the tack with a pair of my wire nips. And just be careful because this does go flying when you nip it. As you can see there, that first one. The second one, I actually covered it with my hand because I didn't want it to go flying up and hit me in the face. And I stopped here and made a raffia bow. This is a little out of sequence, but it's just the way I craft. Sometimes I get going on one piece and then go over to another part of it. But I just made a simple shoelace type bow with a few pieces of raffia. And then I wanted the tails of it to be a lot thicker. So I took some other pieces of the raffia to make the tail and just wrapped them together with a piece of twine. And back to the hubcaps again. I just hot glued the piece of the thumbtack onto the center of the wheels there for my hubcaps. And then once that was done, I glued the truck to the pumpkin. Next, I glued my raffia bow to the top of the pumpkin. Next, I applied the decal that I had printed out from my Cricut, and I chose Pumpkin Kisses and Autumn Wishes for my fall saying. And I did trim up the raffia a little bit just so that it wouldn't cover up the letters. And there you have it, our pumpkin truck sign. Our next craft is a converted pumpkin yard stake that I was going to make for my tabletop. And for this, the first thing you have to do is remove the stake. So it's a little tough working, but not too bad. And it did actually take up a little tiny piece of the metal in the center of the sign, but that wasn't going to matter because after removing the label, the picture, I was going to apply paper. And I used my heat gun here to loosen up the glue from the paper and then peeled it off. I had a piece of autumn craft paper with a little truck and pumpkins, which I just loved and was so cute. I just sort of pressed it down so I could get the shape of the pumpkin and then lightly drew it with a pencil. But I trimmed that up, used my adhesive and attached it to the sign. And then I took the nautical rope from Dollar Tree and glued it around the edge, and I was able to put the part that was going to join together underneath the leaf that's attached to the sign so it wouldn't show. This is a really quick and easy craft. Let me know what kind of crafts you like best. Do you like the ones that are quick and easy like this, or do you like something that's more complicated? Our next craft is a pumpkin window hanger. This is a two-sided sign because it's hanging in my window. I took the, I don't know what you call this, like a planked pumpkin sign, I guess, from Dollar Tree and removed the metal portion of the sign because I was going to cover it in paper. And I covered it on both sides using my spray adhesive, which I'm just really loving how this works for attaching paper to the wood signs. The first side I did with this black and white farmhouse looking pumpkin patch, and the other side, you'll see here in a minute, I used one of the pages from the Dollar Tree calendars. After gluing it to the pumpkin, you have to go through and slice out the center slats, I guess is what you would call it. And I just flipped it over and used a razor knife and just trimmed. Be careful not to cut through the twine because that's what's holding your pumpkin sign together. And I just repeated the process, like I said, with the calendar page on the other side. Once that was complete, I attached a burlap ribbon to the top, and this was Dollar Tree burlap ribbon, the easy fold over method because it's the same on both sides, just a simple bow, and attached it. Now on the flip side, I decided to use some of my lamb's ear, so I snipped off 4 pieces of that and made a bow with my raffia, which is really that hula skirt that I'm using up, and did that by simply wrapping it around my hand like you saw there, and then just wrapped the raffia around itself to tie it off and glued that at the top on top of the lamb's ear. That's all there was to it. I have this hanging in one of my front windows, so it's visible with the Simply Blessed on the outside and the farmhouse looking print to the inside. What do you think of this? Let me know in the comments. Now it's time for that adult beverage, a Colada Margarita. This is a frozen margarita I made using coconut rum, key lime rum cream, and the Jose Cuervo ready-to-drink sour mix. I put everything into my magic bullet container with a fair amount of ice and blended it well until it was frozen. I actually should have let it blend a little longer because there's a plop of ice when I poured it out. But that's it. Very easy. A delicious Colada Margarita. Enjoy.
Well, folks, that's it for another week. Thank you so much for sticking with me. I do appreciate it. I hope you'll take time to stop and smell the coffee. Make it a great week, and I'll see you next